Millionaire pretends to be guest at his hotel and discovers shocking secret. In today's thrilling episode, join us as we follow a millionaire who decides to go undercover at his own luxury hotel. Curiosity piqued, he embarks on a unique adventure, blending in with other guests to experience firsthand what they encounter. If you're excited about this story, please let us know. If you enjoyed the video, please press 1. If not, press 0. Your feedback has inspired me to collect more uplifting and meaningful stories.
The rhythmic tapping of Daniel Langford's expensive Italian leather shoes echoed through the marbled lobby of the Skyline Hotel. At 32, he carried himself with the practiced poise of a man born into privilege, but his blue eyes held a weariness that belied his years. As he strode towards the private elevator, the staff's hushed whispers followed him like a wake. "Good morning, Mr. Langford," the concierge called out, a little too eagerly. Daniel nodded, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. The elevator doors closed, and he leaned against the wall, exhaling slowly. The mirrored interior reflected a man dressed impeccably in a tailored charcoal suit. But Daniel saw only the expectations weighing on his shoulders. In his top-floor office, Daniel gazed out at the Toronto skyline. The Langford Hotel Group's properties dotted the landscape, each a testament to his family's empire. His fingers absently traced the etched nameplate on his desk. Daniel Langford, CEO. "Your 9 a.m. is here, Mr. Langford," his assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. "Send them in, Susan," Daniel replied, straightening his tie. The board meeting dragged on, filled with profit margins and expansion plans. Daniel found himself nodding along, his responses automatic. As the meeting concluded, he couldn't shake the feeling of disconnect that had been growing for months. Later that evening, Daniel sat alone in his expansive penthouse apartment, nursing a glass of scotch. The TV droned on in the background, a travel show featuring adventurers exploring remote corners of the world. He watched enviously as the hosts laughed with locals, tried street food, and experienced life unencumbered by expectations. His phone buzzed. Another message from his mother, asking about his plans to settle down. Daniel ignored it, his mind drifting to his father's last words 2 years ago. "Remember, son, our name is on every door. Make it mean something." But what did it mean to him? The question haunted Daniel as he poured another drink. A notification popped up on his phone, a reminder about tomorrow's staff meeting at the Skyline, the crown jewel of the Langford Group. Daniel stared at it, an idea forming in his mind. What if he could see it all through different eyes? The plan crystallized. He would check into his own hotel as a guest, under an assumed name. No special treatment, no recognition. Just a man experiencing the world his family had built, but from the other side. Daniel's heart raced with a mix of excitement and apprehension. It was reckless, potentially disastrous for the company if discovered. But for the first time in years, he felt alive. He picked up his phone, fingers hovering over the keys. One call to his most trusted friend in HR could set it all in motion. A new identity, a chance to step out of the shadow of his name. Daniel took a deep breath and dialed. "Hey Mark, I need a favor, and it's going to sound crazy." As he hung up, Daniel looked out at the city lights. Tomorrow, he wouldn't be Daniel Langford, heir to a hotel empire. He'd be just another face in the crowd, seeking something he couldn't quite name. Freedom? Understanding? Or perhaps a part of himself he'd lost along the way. The next morning, Daniel stood before the mirror in his walk-in closet, surrounded by rows of designer suits and shoes. He reached past them, selecting a pair of worn jeans and a simple button-down shirt he'd bought at a department store the night before. As he dressed, he felt the weight of the Langford name slipping away. He mussed his usually perfectly coiffed hair and slipped on a pair of nondescript glasses. The stranger in the mirror smiled back at him. "Nice to meet you, Ethan Hart," he murmured, testing out his new identity. With a deep breath, Daniel, now Ethan, grabbed his hastily packed suitcase and headed out. The drive to the Skyline Hotel felt surreal. He'd made this journey countless times, but never like this. Never as just another guest. As he pulled up to the valet, Ethan felt a flutter of nervousness. "You can do this," he whispered to himself, handing over his keys to a young attendant who didn't give him a second glance. The lobby of the Skyline Hotel was a masterpiece of modern luxury, all sleek lines and warm lighting. Ethan took it in with fresh eyes, noticing details he'd overlooked before, The soft classical music playing in the background, the subtle scent of lavender in the air, the way the sunlight caught the crystal chandelier, sending prisms dancing across the marble floor. At the reception desk, a young woman greeted him with a professional smile. "Welcome to the Skyline Hotel. Do you have a reservation?" "Yes, under Ethan Hart," he replied, surprised at how easily the lie came. He felt a twinge of guilt but pushed it aside. As she typed, Ethan glanced around, taking in the ebb and flow of guests and staff. A group of businessmen in crisp suits strode purposefully towards the conference center. A family with 2 young children struggled with their luggage, the parents looking frazzled. A bellhop rushed to their aid, and Ethan made a mental note to review their check-in procedures. His gaze landed on a woman near the concierge desk, her dark hair pulled back in a neat bun. She was speaking animatedly to a couple, her hands moving expressively as she explained something. There was an energy about her that drew Ethan's attention. "Mr. Hart." The receptionist's voice drew his attention back. "Your room is ready. You'll be in 1408, one of our deluxe king rooms. Is there anything else you need?" Ethan shook his head, accepting the key card. "Actually, could you tell me, who is that woman over there?" He gestured discreetly towards the animated speaker. The receptionist followed his gaze. "Oh, that's Sophia Martinez, our events coordinator. She's wonderful, always going above and beyond for our guests. Would you like me to introduce you?" "No, thank you," Ethan replied quickly. "I was just curious." As he made his way to the elevators, Ethan stole one last glance at Sophia. There was something captivating about her energy, so at odds with the polished restraint he was used to in his corporate world. In his room, Ethan set down his suitcase and walked to the window. The view of Toronto was breathtaking, but for once, he wasn't thinking about property values or occupancy rates. Instead, he found himself wondering about the lives of the people he could see on the streets below. A knock at the door startled him. "Housekeeping." Ethan opened the door to find a petite woman with kind eyes and graying hair. "I'm Lily," she said. "Just checking if you need anything?" "No thank you, Lily. Everything's perfect." As she turned to leave, Lily paused, her brow furrowing slightly as she looked at him. For a moment, Ethan feared his cover was blown. But then she smiled and walked away, leaving him to wonder if his paranoia was already getting the best of him. Closing the door, Ethan leaned against it, heart pounding. This was it. He was in. Now, to experience his hotel as never before, and perhaps to discover something about himself in the process. The next few days passed in a whirlwind of new experiences for Ethan. He dined in the hotel restaurant, marveling at the attentive service he'd always taken for granted. The lobster bisque was exquisite, but it was the genuine warmth of the waitstaff that truly impressed him. He made a mental note to review the employee recognition program. In the gym, he chatted with other guests about their stays, absorbing their feedback like a sponge. A businessman from Chicago raved about the in-room coffee machine, but complained about the Wi-Fi speed. A couple from Melbourne gushed about the rooftop bar, but mentioned the long wait for the elevators during peak hours. Each interaction, no matter how small, felt like a revelation. Ethan found himself jotting down notes in the evenings, ideas for improvements swirling in his mind. It was on his 3rd day when he encountered Sophia again. He was sitting in the hotel bar, nursing a gin and tonic, when she walked in, looking slightly frazzled. Her hair, usually immaculate, had a few strands escaping from her bun, and she was carrying a stack of folders. "Long day?" Ethan ventured as she took the seat next to him. Sophia looked up, surprised, then smiled. The warmth of it caught Ethan off guard. "Is it that obvious?" she asked, setting down her folders with a sigh. "Only to a keen observer," he replied, raising his glass in a mock toast. She laughed, the sound genuine and unrestrained. It was so different from the polite titters he was used to in boardrooms. "I'm Sophia, by the way, events coordinator extraordinaire, or at least that's what they tell me." "Ethan Hart," he introduced himself, the lie coming easier now. "I've heard great things about you from the staff." They fell into easy conversation, Sophia's warmth drawing him in. She told him about the charity gala she was planning, her eyes lighting up as she described her vision. "It's going to be amazing," she said, gesturing excitedly. "A night of old Hollywood glamour, all to benefit local children's hospitals. We're transforming the ballroom into a 1940s supper club, complete with a live jazz band and vintage cocktails. Ethan found himself captivated, not just by the event, but by Sophia's passion. "It sounds wonderful. I don't suppose you need any volunteers." The words were out of his mouth before he could stop them. Sophia's eyes widened. "Are you offering? Because I could definitely use an extra pair of hands. Things are a bit tense around here lately." Ethan's ears perked up. "Tense? How so?" Sophia bit her lip, seeming to debate whether to continue. "It's probably nothing," she said finally. "Just rumors about a potential buyout. You know how it is in the corporate world." Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. A buyout? How had he not known about this? He forced his face to remain neutral. "That sounds stressful. All the more reason to help with the gala, right? Take your mind off things." Sophia's smile returned, albeit a bit subdued. "You're right, and I'd be grateful for the help." As they continued chatting, neither noticed Lily watching them from across the room, a puzzled expression on her face. She'd seen countless guests come and go, but there was something different about this Ethan Hart. Something familiar that she couldn't quite place. The evening wore on, and as Ethan bid Sophia goodnight, he felt a warmth in his chest that had nothing to do with the gin. He was excited about helping with the gala, yes, but more than that, he was excited to spend more time with Sophia. As he rode the elevator back to his room, Ethan's mind raced. He had to find out more about this potential buyout. But how could he do that without revealing his true identity? And why did the thought of disappointing Sophia make him feel so uneasy? The doors opened on his floor, and Ethan stepped out, more determined than ever to see this adventure through. Little did he know, the real challenges were only just beginning. As the charity gala drew nearer, Ethan found himself spending more time with Sophia, their collaboration blossoming into a genuine friendship. One afternoon, as they worked on finalizing the seating arrangements in a small conference room, the air conditioning hummed softly in the background, a stark contrast to the bustling hallway outside. Sophia's curiosity finally got the better of her. "So, Ethan," she began, her tone casual as she peered at him over a stack of place cards. "What brings you to Toronto, business or pleasure?" Ethan paused, his mind racing to construct a plausible story. The lie felt heavy on his tongue. "A bit of both, actually. I'm a consultant. Thought I'd extend my stay and enjoy the city." Sophia nodded, seemingly satisfied. "Well, I'm glad you did. Your help has been invaluable." As they continued working, Ethan found himself revealing more than he intended, sharing anecdotes from his childhood and his passion for architecture, carefully edited to exclude any mention of the Langford name. The afternoon light slanted through the windows, casting a warm glow on Sophia's face as she listened intently. "You know," Sophia said, her eyes twinkling, "for a consultant, you have a remarkable eye for hotel operations. Are you sure you haven't worked in the industry before?" Ethan laughed nervously, quickly changing the subject. "Just observant, I guess. Tell me more about this charity you're supporting." Meanwhile, Lily's suspicions continued to grow. During her rounds, she overheard snippets of Ethan's conversations, noticing inconsistencies in his story. Her years of experience had honed her intuition, and something about Ethan Hart didn't quite add up. That evening, as Ethan returned to his room, he found Lily finishing up her housekeeping duties. The scent of lemon-scented cleaner hung in the air. "Good evening, Mr. Hart," she said, her gaze lingering on him a moment too long. "Everything to your satisfaction?" "Yes, thank you, Lily," Ethan replied, an uneasy feeling settling in his stomach. He couldn't shake the feeling that Lily saw more than she let on. As Lily left, Ethan couldn't help but feel that his carefully constructed facade was beginning to crumble. He sat on the edge of the bed, head in his hands, the weight of his deception pressing down on him. The next day, as Ethan and Sophia were reviewing the event budget in the hotel's sun-drenched atrium, his phone rang. The caller ID displayed Daniel Langford's office. Ethan's heart raced as he quickly silenced the call. Sophia glanced at the phone, her brow furrowed. "Aren't you going to answer that?" "It's not important," Ethan said, his voice strained. "Where were we?" Sophia's expression softened, sensing his discomfort. As they worked, Ethan found himself opening up about his family's expectations and his struggle to find his own path, the truth mixing dangerously with his fabricated identity. "Sometimes," he admitted, staring at the lush plants surrounding them. I feel like I'm living someone else's life. Sophia reached out, squeezing his hand. The warmth of her touch sent a jolt through Ethan. I understand. It's not easy to balance others' expectations with your own desires. Their eyes met, and for a moment, Ethan felt an overwhelming urge to confess everything. But the fear of losing this newfound connection held him back. As they parted ways, the guilt of his deception weighed heavily on him, threatening to unravel everything he'd built over the past few days. The calm of the past few days was shattered when Ethan overheard a conversation between two executives in the hotel lobby. Hidden behind a large potted palm, he listened intently, his heart racing. Vertex Hotels is making a move, a gravelly voice said. They're offering a substantial sum for the skyline. But what about the Langford family? Another voice responded. Surely they won't sell their flagship property. Word is, the young Langford isn't as invested in the family business. Vertex smells blood in the water. Ethan's mind reeled. Vertex Hotels was known for its aggressive takeovers and cost-cutting measures. If they acquired the skyline, everything he'd come to appreciate about the hotel, the dedicated staff, the attention to detail, the sense of community, would be at risk. He found Sophia in her office, poring over last-minute gala details. The room was a whirlwind of color swatches, seating charts, and floral arrangements. Hey, he said, trying to keep his voice casual. Have you heard anything about Vertex Hotels showing interest in the skyline? Sophia looked up, surprised. Her pen clattered to the desk. How did you know about that? It's supposed to be confidential. Ethan backpedaled quickly. Oh, I just overheard some suits talking in the lobby. Sounded serious. Sophia sighed, running a hand through her hair. The worry in her eyes was palpable. It is. The staff is on edge. Vertex has a reputation for gutting the hotels they acquire. Jobs would be lost, services cut. This place. It's more than just a hotel, Ethan. It's a family. Ethan felt a surge of protectiveness, both for the hotel and its employees. There must be something that can be done, he mused, more to himself than to Sophia. She gave him a quizzical look. You seem pretty invested for a guest. I've grown fond of this place, Ethan replied, avoiding her gaze. The lie tasted bitter in his mouth. As the day progressed, Ethan found himself torn between his role as Ethan Hart and his responsibilities as Daniel Langford. He discreetly made phone calls, trying to gather more information about Vertex's plans without revealing his true identity. The stress of his double life was beginning to take its toll, manifesting in a persistent headache and a knot in his stomach. During a break from gala preparations, Ethan overheard Lily talking to another housekeeper in the staff corridor. The smell of clean laundry wafted from the nearby linen closet. I'm telling you, there's something off about that Ethan Hart, Lily whispered, her voice laced with suspicion. The way he moves, the way he talks. He reminds me of someone. Ethan quickly walked away, his heart pounding. He knew his charade was on borrowed time. That evening, as he and Sophia were leaving the hotel after a long day of work, they nearly collided with a group of executives entering the lobby. The men's expensive cologne hung heavily in the air. Ethan recognized them immediately, the CEO and CFO of Vertex Hotels. Excuse us, the CEO said gruffly, barely sparing them a glance. As they walked away, Sophia turned to Ethan, her face pale. That was Jeffrey Roth, CEO of Vertex. This is worse than we thought. Ethan nodded grimly, his mind racing. He knew he had to act, but doing so would mean revealing his true identity. As they stood there in silence, the weight of his deception pressed down on him like never before. Sophia, he began, his voice thick with emotion. There's something I need to tell you. But before he could continue, Sophia's phone rang. It's my boss, she said, answering quickly. I have to take this. As Sophia walked away to take the call, Ethan was left alone with his thoughts, knowing that the moment of truth was rapidly approaching. The bustling lobby suddenly felt suffocating, the cheerful chatter of guests a stark contrast to the turmoil in his mind. The night of the charity gala arrived. The Skyline Hotel transformed into a glittering homage to old Hollywood glamour. The air was thick with the scent of roses and the sound of clinking champagne glasses. Guests in tuxedos and sparkling gowns filled the grand ballroom, their excitement palpable. Ethan, dressed in a rented tux that felt foreign on his body, stood by the entrance, greeting guests alongside Sophia. He marveled at her poise, the way she effortlessly charmed everyone she encountered. Her red gown shimmered under the chandeliers, and for a moment, Ethan allowed himself to imagine a future where he could be by her side, not as Ethan Hart, but as his true self. As the evening progressed, Ethan couldn't shake his unease. The looming threat of the Vertex takeover weighed heavily on his mind, and he knew he'd have to act soon to protect the hotel and its staff. The jazz band played a melancholic tune, eerily fitting for his mood. Midway through the event, Ethan spotted Jeffrey Roth, the Vertex CEO, deep in conversation with members of the Skyline's board. Their hushed tones and serious expressions sent a chill down Ethan's spine. Unable to resist, he edged closer, straining to hear their discussion over the music and chatter. "Substantial offer," Roth was saying, his voice low but firm. "It's in everyone's best interest to move quickly and quietly. The young Langford seems disinterested in the day-to-day operations. This could be a smooth transition." Ethan's fists clenched at his sides, anger and guilt warring within him. He had to do something. Consequences be damned. Just then, Sophia appeared at his elbow, the scent of her perfume momentarily distracting him. "Ethan, there you are. The director of the Children's Hospital wants to thank you personally for your help." Before Ethan could respond, a commotion near the stage caught everyone's attention. Lily, looking flustered but determined, was whispering urgently to the event MC. The man's eyes widened, and he nodded, stepping up to the microphone. The feedback whine cut through the noise of the crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen," the MC announced, his voice echoing through the ballroom, "we have a very special guest with us tonight. Please welcome the CEO of Langford Hotel Group, Mr. Daniel Langford." A spotlight swung around, landing squarely on Ethan. The room fell silent, all eyes turning to him. The weight of hundreds of stares pressed down on him like a physical force. Sophia stared at him, confusion and hurt dawning on her face. "Ethan?" she whispered, her voice barely audible over the sudden murmurs rippling through the crowd. "What's going on?" Heart pounding, Ethan stepped forward. There was no going back now. The crystal chandeliers seemed to dim, focusing all attention on him. I can explain," he began, his voice shaky. But before he could continue, Jeffrey Roth pushed through the crowd, his face a mask of fury. "Daniel Langford? What kind of game are you playing?" The room erupted in gasps and furious whispers. Ethan saw the betrayal in Sophia's eyes, the shock on the faces of the hotel staff he'd come to know and respect. The jazz band had stopped playing, leaving an oppressive silence broken only by the angry voices rising around him. "I'm sorry," he said, his words directed at Sophia but loud enough for all to hear. "I never meant to deceive anyone. I just wanted to understand, to see things from a different perspective." Sophia shook her head, tears welling in her eyes. The hurt in her gaze cut deeper than any words could. "I trusted you," she said, her voice cracking with emotion. Without another word, she turned and walked away, leaving Ethan alone in the spotlight, facing the consequences of his deception. The weight of his family name, which he had so desperately tried to escape, now seemed heavier than ever. As chaos erupted around him, Ethan knew that the real challenge was only beginning. He had a hotel to save, a reputation to rebuild, and most importantly, a trust to regain. The glittering ballroom, once a scene of celebration, now felt like a battlefield, and Ethan stood at its center, more alone than he had ever been. The days following the gala were a whirlwind of damage control for Daniel. The revelation of his true identity had sent shockwaves through the hotel and beyond. He found himself constantly bombarded by press inquiries, board meetings, and damage control sessions with his PR team. The Skyline Hotel, once his sanctuary, now felt like a prison. Every corner held a memory of his time as Ethan Hart, every familiar face now clouded with disappointment or anger. The lobby's marble floors echoed accusingly under his feet as he walked, the weight of his deception heavy on his shoulders. But amidst the chaos, one thought consumed him. Sophia. Her absence was palpable, a constant reminder of the trust he had broken. He had tried calling, texting, even sending handwritten notes, but all his attempts at communication were met with silence. One afternoon, frustrated and disheartened, Daniel found himself in the hotel's staff area, a place he'd never ventured before as CEO. The stark fluorescent lighting and utilitarian furnishings were a far cry from the luxury of the guest areas. He spotted Lily organizing linens and approached her hesitantly, the scent of laundry detergent heavy in the air. "Lily," he began, his voice hoarse from lack of sleep. "I owe you an apology, and a thank you, I suppose." Lily turned, her expression a mix of wariness and curiosity. "Mr. Langford, or do you prefer Ethan?" Daniel winced at the barb. "Daniel is fine. I understand why you did what you did. You were protecting the hotel." Lily nodded slowly, her hands never stopping their methodical folding. "It wasn't just that. I saw how close you and Sophia were getting. She deserved to know the truth." At the mention of Sophia's name, Daniel's composure cracked. "Have you seen her? Is she okay?" Lily's eyes softened slightly, noting the genuine concern in his voice. "She's hurt, Mr. Langford, but she's strong. Give her time." As Daniel turned to leave, Lily spoke again, her voice softer. "For what it's worth, I think I understand why you did it. Sometimes, to really see things, you have to step outside yourself." Her words stayed with Daniel as he made his way back to his office. He had wanted to see his hotel through fresh eyes, but in the process, he had seen himself more clearly than ever before. That evening, as Daniel was preparing to leave the hotel, he ran into Sophia in the lobby. She was speaking with a guest, her professional smile firmly in place. But he could see the strain around her eyes, the slight slump in her usually confident posture. As the guest walked away, Daniel approached her cautiously, his heart hammering in his chest. "Sophia, please, can we talk?" Sophia turned, her expression guarded. The warmth that had once radiated from her was now replaced by a cool detachment. "I think you've said enough, Mr. Langford." "I know I hurt you," Daniel pressed on, his voice low and urgent. The bustling lobby seemed to fade away, leaving just the two of them in this moment. "But please, let me explain. Not here, not now, but maybe over coffee? Whenever you're ready." For a moment, Sophia's mask slipped, and Daniel saw a flicker of the warmth he'd grown to cherish. But just as quickly, it was gone, replaced by a professional neutrality that cut him to the core. "I need time," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "This isn't just about me. You deceived everyone here." Daniel nodded, accepting her words. As Sophia walked away, disappearing into the crowd of guests, he felt a renewed determination. He would make things right, not just with her, but with everyone at the Skyline. It wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in his life, Daniel Langford was ready to fight for something more than just his family's legacy. As weeks passed, Daniel threw himself into his work with renewed vigor. The threat from Vertex Hotels still loomed large, but now he faced it head-on, drawing on the insights he'd gained during his time as Ethan. The Skyline Hotel buzzed with a nervous energy. Staff whispered in corners, their eyes darting whenever Daniel passed. He knew he had to regain their trust, to prove that he truly cared about more than just the bottom line. One morning, as he reviewed the latest financial reports in his office, the city skyline a steel and glass backdrop behind him, his assistant knocked on the door. "Mr. Langford? Ms. Martinez is here to see you." Daniel's heart leapt. "Send her in, please." Sophia entered, her posture stiff but determined. The scent of her familiar perfume brought back a rush of memories. "Mr. Langford, I've been thinking about your offer to talk. I'm ready to listen." Over the next hour, Daniel laid bare his motivations, his fears, and his regrets. Sophia listened silently, her expression unreadable. The ticking of the clock on the wall punctuated the heavy silences between Daniel's words. "I understand why you did it," she said finally, her voice soft but firm. "But understanding doesn't erase the hurt." Daniel nodded, relief and hope warring within him. "I know. I don't expect forgiveness, Sophia. But I do hope we can work together to save the Skyline. Your insights, your passion, they're exactly what we need right now." Sophia considered his words, her fingers tracing patterns on the arm of her chair. "The staff is worried about Vertex. What's your plan?" "That's just it," Daniel admitted, running a hand through his hair. "I don't have one, not yet. But I was hoping, maybe we could come up with one together." For the first time since the gala, Sophia's lips curved into a small smile. "I might have some ideas." Over the next few weeks, Daniel and Sophia worked tirelessly, brainstorming ways to improve the hotel's performance and boost staff morale. They implemented new training programs, revamped the hotel's marketing strategy, and even organized a series of community outreach events. The hotel came alive with a new energy. In the kitchens, chefs experimented with locally sourced ingredients. The concierge team developed personalized city tours for guests. Even the housekeeping staff, led by a reinvigorated Lily, took pride in going above and beyond. Their efforts began to pay off. Guest satisfaction scores soared, and the hotel's reputation in the community strengthened. Even the usually stoic board members were impressed by the turnaround. As they worked side by side, Daniel felt the walls between them slowly crumbling. Sophia's laughter, once so freely given, began to return. Their late-night strategy sessions often drifted into personal conversations, rebuilding the connection they had lost. One evening, as they celebrated a particularly successful initiative in Daniel's office, the city lights twinkling beyond the windows, Sophia turned to him, her eyes serious. "You know, for a while I wasn't sure which version of you was real, Ethan or Daniel, but now I see. They're both you. The compassion, the dedication, the desire to make a difference, that's all you." Daniel felt a weight lift from his shoulders. "Thank you, Sophia, for giving me a chance to make things right." As they stood there, the air between them charged with unspoken emotions, Daniel's phone buzzed. It was an email from Vertex Hotels. "They're withdrawing their takeover bid," he breathed, showing Sophia the screen. Their eyes met, joy and relief mingling with something deeper. In that moment, Daniel knew that they had not only saved the hotel, but had also laid the foundation for something far more precious. With the Vertex threat neutralized, Daniel and Sophia found themselves at a crossroads. The intense period of collaboration had brought them closer, but the shadow of Daniel's initial deception still lingered, a thin veil between them. One sunny afternoon, Daniel invited Sophia to join him for a walk in the nearby park. As they strolled along the tree-lined paths, the sound of children playing and the scent of blooming flowers filling the air, he gathered his courage. "Sophia," he began, his voice catching slightly, "I know we've come a long way since everything. But I feel like there's still so much left unsaid between us." Sophia nodded, her eyes fixed on the path ahead. A gentle breeze played with a loose strand of her hair. "I've been thinking about that too. Daniel, when I first met you as Ethan, I felt a connection I'd never experienced before. Finding out it was all based on a lie, it broke something in me." Daniel winced at her words but let her continue, knowing she needed to express these feelings. "But these past weeks, working with you, seeing your true dedication to the hotel and its people, I've realized that the connection wasn't a lie. The man I got to know, he's real. He's you." They stopped walking, turning to face each other. Daniel's heart raced as he saw the warmth returning to Sophia's eyes. "I'm not saying it's going to be easy," Sophia continued, her voice soft but determined. "Trust takes time to rebuild, but I'm willing to try if you are." Daniel reached out, gently taking her hand. The touch sent a spark through both of them. "Sophia, I promise you, no more lies, no more masks. Just me, with all my flaws and insecurities, but also with all my heart." As they sealed their new beginning with a tender kiss, both felt the promise of something beautiful blossoming between them. Back at the hotel, Daniel and Sophia's renewed connection didn't go unnoticed. Lily, ever observant, watched with a satisfied smile as the two worked seamlessly together, their shared laughter echoing through the halls. Over the following months, Daniel and Sophia's partnership transformed the Skyline Hotel. They introduced innovative programs that balanced luxury with community engagement, making the hotel a true cornerstone of Toronto's social scene. The lobby became a showcase for local artists. The rooftop garden supplied fresh herbs and vegetables to the hotel's restaurants. A mentorship program connected hotel staff with at-risk youth, teaching them valuable skills in hospitality. Daniel found himself sharing more of the day-to-day operations with Sophia, valuing her insights and creativity. Together, they navigated the challenges of their professional and personal relationships, learning to balance their roles as colleagues and partners. One evening, as they stood on the hotel's rooftop terrace, overlooking the glittering Toronto skyline, Daniel turned to Sophia. The setting sun painted the sky in hues of pink and gold, reflecting off the glass towers around them. "You know," he said, a smile playing on his lips. "I came here looking for myself, but I found so much more. I found you. I found a new purpose, and I found a way to honor my family's legacy while making it my own." Sophia leaned into him, her eyes reflecting the city lights. "And to think, it all started with a little white lie." Daniel chuckled, pulling her close. "Well, here's one truth I know for certain. I love you, Sophia Martinez." As their lips met, both knew that this was just the beginning of their greatest adventure yet. The Skyline Hotel stood tall against the night sky, a beacon of authenticity in a world often dominated by appearances. And at its heart, a love story that proved that sometimes, the greatest journeys are the ones that lead us back to ourselves. A year had passed since the eventful charity gala that changed everything. The Skyline Hotel was thriving under Daniel and Sophia's joint leadership, their complementary strengths creating a dynamic that impressed both staff and guests alike. On a crisp autumn morning, Daniel stood before the hotel's entire staff in the grand ballroom, Sophia by his side. The room buzzed with anticipation, the air filled with the scent of freshly brewed coffee and pastries from the hotel's bakery. "Today," he began, his voice carrying across the room, "we're not just celebrating our record-breaking quarter. We're celebrating each one of you who made it possible." As Daniel spoke about the hotel's achievements, he couldn't help but reflect on his own journey. The man who had once hidden behind a false identity now stood confidently before his team, fully embracing his role and his true self. Sophia stepped forward, her presence adding warmth to Daniel's words. "We've introduced programs that not only enhance our guests' experiences, but also enrich our community. From our partnerships with local artisans to our mentorship program for at-risk youth, we're redefining what it means to be a luxury hotel in the 21st century." The staff erupted in applause, their pride palpable. Lily, now head of housekeeping, beamed from the front row, her eyes glistening with happy tears. Later that day, as Daniel and Sophia walked through the hotel, they overheard a conversation between two guests near the koi pond in the atrium. "You know," one was saying, "I've stayed in five-star hotels all over the world, but there's something special about this place. It feels authentic." Daniel squeezed Sophia's hand, a silent acknowledgement of how far they'd come. That evening, they hosted a small dinner party in Daniel's penthouse for the hotel's department heads. As conversations flowed and laughter filled the air, Daniel found himself marveling at the family they'd built. "A toast," he said, raising his glass. The city lights twinkled beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows, to authenticity, to growth, and to the incredible team that makes the Skyline not just a hotel, but a home. As the night wore on, Daniel and Sophia slipped away to the balcony. The city stretched out before them, a tapestry of lights and possibilities. "You know," Sophia mused, leaning into Daniel's embrace, "when you first revealed who you really were, I thought my world had shattered. But now, I can't imagine my life any other way." Daniel kissed her forehead gently. "I spent so long trying to live up to my family's name that I forgot to live for myself. You taught me how to do that, Sophia." Inside, they could hear their friends and colleagues laughing, the sound a testament to the warmth and community they'd fostered. "Ready to go back in?" Sophia asked, her eyes twinkling. Daniel nodded, taking her hand. As they rejoined the party, he felt a profound sense of contentment. He was exactly where he was meant to be, no longer hiding behind a facade but fully present, fully himself. The Skyline Hotel stood tall against the night sky, a beacon of authenticity in a world often dominated by appearances. And at its heart, a love story that proved that sometimes, the greatest journeys are the ones that lead us back to ourselves. 5 years later, the Skyline Hotel had become a landmark not just in Toronto, but in the hospitality industry worldwide. Daniel and Sophia's innovative approach had set new standards for luxury hotels, balancing opulence with social responsibility. On a sunny Saturday morning, Daniel stood in the hotel's grand lobby, his daughter Emma perched on his hip. At 3 years old, she was already showing signs of inheriting her parents' passion for hospitality, charming guests with her bright smile and curious nature. "And this," Daniel said, pointing to a newly installed plaque, "is where it all began." The plaque told the story of Ethan Hart and how a twist of fate had transformed the Skyline. It was a testament to honesty, growth, and the power of seeing the world through different eyes. Sophia joined them, slipping her arm around Daniel's waist. The scent of her perfume mingled with the lobby's signature lavender fragrance. Telling her the story again? She asked, her eyes twinkling. Daniel chuckled. It's important she knows where she comes from, both the triumphs and the mistakes. As they walked through the hotel, they passed the charity gala in full swing in the ballroom. Now an annual event, it had become one of the city's most anticipated social gatherings, raising millions for various causes. The sound of jazz music and laughter spilled out into the corridor. In the restaurant, they paused to chat with the head chef, a graduate of their youth mentorship program. His journey from a troubled teen to a rising culinary star was just one of many success stories born from their initiatives. Later that evening, as they put Emma to bed in their penthouse suite, Sophia turned to Daniel. The soft glow of the nightlight cast gentle shadows across the room. You know, sometimes I still can't believe how our story unfolded. Daniel pulled her close. I wouldn't change a thing. Every misstep led us here. As they stood on their balcony, overlooking the city they'd come to love even more deeply, Daniel reflected on the legacy they were building. It wasn't just about the Langford name anymore. It was about the lives they'd touched, the community they'd strengthened, and the love that had blossomed amidst it all. What are you thinking about? Sophia asked, noticing his thoughtful expression. The future, Daniel replied, his eyes bright with excitement. And how excited I am to face it with you. Inside, Emma called out for one more goodnight kiss. As they went to her, hand in hand, both Daniel and Sophia felt a profound sense of gratitude. They had found in each other not just a partner, but a home. The Skyline Hotel stood as a symbol of their journey, a journey of self-discovery, forgiveness, and love. And as the city lights twinkled below, Daniel and Sophia knew that their greatest adventure was still unfolding, one day at a time, authentic and true. As they closed Emma's bedroom door, Daniel whispered, I love you, Sophia Martinez Langford. Sophia's smile lit up the dimly lit hallway. And I love you, Daniel Langford. Always. They shared a tender kiss, a promise of many more years of love, growth, and authenticity to come. The Skyline Hotel and the family within it would continue to thrive, a testament to the power of second chances and the beauty of being true to oneself. What did you think of the story? Leave a comment with your opinion. Thank you for watching this far. 2 buttons will appear on the side, one to subscribe, if you haven't already, and another to watch other exciting stories. Take your pick. See you soon.